So it's an interesting decision that we make to tether ourselves to an experience or a team that we have very little effect on the outcome. The effect is not zero. We, from afar here, can affect the game through media. There are beat writers that are closer to the team. There is social media like us that can apply pressure and affect the human side of the team and management. There is the pressure that's a little bit closer for people that go to the games, yell and scream and affect the opposing team through distracting the players and causing false starts. That's very well known for 12s at Quest / CenturyLink / Lumen, and getting into the heads of the opposing team or your own team if that's what you choose to do. And there is also apathy. And when there is apathy, the bottom line of the corporation, of the company, of the franchise, of the team is affected. And apathy is a direct outcome of the team not meeting the level of its competition. The term fair weather fan, whoever came up with this term must have been working for a team that wanted to find a way to abuse people that did not stick with them in a very ugly way. Because the relationship between the company, the NFL team, and the client, us, fans, supporters, is transactional. And don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. The team is required, if they want to keep the business, if they want to keep us involved, to put together a product that is compelling, that allows us to want to choose to put our time towards consuming their product. And what do they offer us? They offer us the ability to feel good through winning. Through this team. And to feel joy. Be able to flex when your team beats another team. That represents me. However, if the team is not putting the effort in to be competitive, to meet and exceed the level of other teams that are playing football in this league, that see something is wrong and do not address it because of hubris, ego, lack of caring because they're already very wealthy, then they do not deserve your fandom. Don't let anybody ever tell you otherwise. They exist. These teams exist because of the support they have from their supporters and their fans. And so when you see teams like the Cleveland Browns that win one game over the span of 2 years, I don't blame guys like Mark Sessler that jump off after having supported them for many, many years. Because that's not on Mark Sessler. That's on the Cleveland Browns. They lost him. He didn't abandon them. So don't let anyone use that fair weather fan term on you ever, and do not underestimate your value and your power as somebody that supports the team. You are the lifeblood of the team. The San Francisco 49ers defeated the Seattle Seahawks 31-13 on a day where the overarching emotion, strangely enough, is empathy for the Detroit Lions. A team that has been playing on Thanksgiving for decades now. A team that has been bad for decades. And Thanksgiving is one of the greatest holidays that's ever been created. And, if you can look past the origins of it and what it's become as a way to, be with people you love and eat amazing food that sometimes you only eat at that time of year, and take, not have to work, not have to go to school, and all the best things, and enjoy football. But for the Detroit Lions to have to play every single year on this day at noon in the beginning of the day before you can even enjoy that meal or get together with people, and for them every single year to lose, for that franchise to give them a losing product and ruin their Thanksgiving, I can't imagine how much people in Detroit must hate Thanksgiving because of this team, or how many Detroit Lions fans left the team because of this day. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit. Pete Carroll has been the coach of the Seattle Seahawks since 2010. He is now in his 13th, 14th year. And as you look at the arc of Pete Carroll, when he got there from USC, he had built a brand. He was a winner, finally, after moving up. And there was a period there, 2010 to 2012. Obviously, Seahawks were in bad shape and they had to be rebuilt, and he rebuilt them. He leveraged what he knew, what he learned from college, and was able to draft a lot of the players that he already scouted. And he built one of the best teams in NFL history. I'm not biting my tongue on that. He built one of the best teams in NFL history. And what was even better than the talent that these players had is their never give up attitude. Their never give up attitude. During these days, even when the Seahawks were losing, even when it had come into the end of the game, oftentimes it would be that the Seahawks were losing by 3 points, a touchdown, maybe 10 points. And if the other team had started the game 20-0, the game would have ended 20-18. And in the last play of the game, the Seahawks at the line of scrimmage, even when the other team was kneeling, would go and punch them and try to get that ball. They'd fight to the very last second, even after the last second. You saw that in the Super Bowl that they lost as well. And that's the fight. That's the fight that I remember from this team. That's no longer there. That is no longer there with this iteration of the Seahawks. Now, what can we blame that on? When this happens, when the Seahawks lose in this way, when they get embarrassed on national TV, maybe one of the biggest viewerships of the year of anything. I mean, football gets more viewers than anything else in America. But on this day, when the Seahawks lose, Pete Carroll invites us to look at who he really is and his hiring practices and his nepotism and how his defensive coordinator is a guy that literally nobody would have hired from the place that he came from. And his offensive coordinator is also a guy that would not have been promoted in the way that he was. And his running backs coach is a guy that was with him at USC. And Ken Norton, his DC for years, was the guy that was with him at USC. And he has his own sons on his staff in high positions. This has been said before. If you know guys that had played for Pete Carroll, Petros Papadakis says this often. Pete Carroll does not allow anybody on his staff that he feels can be a threat to his job. The same way he did not allow a backup quarterback for many, many years to challenge Russell Wilson. He creates a bubble. Ultimately, his line stops with his own ability to feel comfort in his position, not the team over everything, him over the team. And what we're starting to see here, I addressed this last week, is the inability of Pete Carroll to recognize that Shane Waldron is not doing his job. When you watch this game in the first half, I'm going to isolate the first half here, how difficult it was for the Seahawks to do anything on offense, to do anything. And they would pan sometimes to Geno Smith's site, what he was looking at. And there would be maybe one play or one person that was designed to catch a ball. Geno Smith would drop back, and the line would give him his 3 seconds, and there would still be nobody open. Now, your job as an offensive coordinator is the entire week, your 9 to 5, or whatever their hours are, review the film of the opposing defense and find every little weakness in that defense and exploit it. Put your game plan together to exploit it. Every single week, Shane Waldron fails to do that. Fails to find the gaps in the opposing team's defense because every week it is so difficult for the Seahawks to do anything on offense. It's absolutely pathetic. Especially juxtaposed against how easily the San Francisco offense was getting yards against the Seahawks defense. They know exactly your weakness. You play a zone defense, and they just go find the holes, sit in there. Kittle, go find the hole, sit in there. Deebo, go find the hole, sit in there. Aiyuk, go find the hole, sit in there. McCaffrey and the line, block on this side because we know they're not going to be there. Go run through this side. And the Seahawks are committed to this zone. And I remember watching, I think NorbCam or one of these other channels and seeing that somebody, a 49ers fan, sent in a comment and said, well, I'm your friendly 49ers fan. And the way to beat us is don't play zone, play man as much as possible. You're welcome. And that's exactly it. That is exactly it. Tariq Woolen. I'm not going to stop calling him that. I don't know why he changed his name. By the way, since he changed his name to Tariq Woolen, he's been horrible. The Seahawks' philosophy is to continue to stubbornly play zone defense and draft guys that are just athletic, like Tariq Woolen. And last year, when the league didn't know anything about him, when he was a rookie, he led the league in interceptions, and he relied on his athleticism to do so. But he himself even said, I don't know what's going on out here. I'm just playing on instinct. Well, this year, people are ready for Tariq Woolen. And the offensive coordinator of the 49ers knows that Woolen plays on instinct. And Tariq Woolen was benched in this game because they know that when you rely on somebody that just plays on instinct, that their IQ is not going to be able to compare to what you can scheme on offense. And so they'll find other places in the gaps where they can throw the ball that's further away from you, that even with your speed and even with your instinct, you're not able to get to. That's what teams are doing this year. That's what the 49ers did today. That's why Tariq Woolen was benched for Mike Jackson. And that kind of stuff is going to continue to happen while you have this coaching staff. There are so many things to say about this game, to go over in this game. The Seattle offense, which is just absolutely anemic, pathetic, hasn't scored in 7 quarters. Geno Smith was tripping over his running back. Michael Sean Dugar said in the recap of this game that when he talks to some of the Seahawks and they talk about their third down woes over the past few weeks, he says that the players say, well, we just got to make sure we all know the play. We got to make sure that we all know the play. The play! The play that's coming in, that we're on the same page about the play that's coming in, the very fundamental aspect of playing on offense. We got to know the play. I don't know how you can keep your offensive coordinator when not every single guy on the offense knows what play you're running and knows where you should be on that play. Geno Smith, I've said this before, okay? I mean, the only way you're going to win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith is if everybody on the team that's not him is an all-pro, okay? I realize this. His growth is very, very incremental. I know this guy has a lot of heart. He's very passionate. I know on the sideline today he was expressing his frustration. And listen, I know it's a combination of things. Okay, on the sacks that he was getting, the offensive line was giving him pretty much 3 seconds, except for a couple, maybe 2 or 3 plays from Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa. True is, of course, one of the best defensive players in the league, but most of these plays, this guy's getting 3 seconds, and it's a combination of things, okay? It's a combination of players not being open because Waldron is not scheming them open, but Geno also refuses to throw the ball away. I don't know that I've ever seen him throw the ball away, and he needs to do that, all right? Especially on third down, you got to throw it. You got to throw it. Otherwise, you're kicking it on fourth down anyway. I mean, throwing a long pass on third down is just like a punt. And oftentimes he didn't do that. And there was this little throw on second and long. it was second and 15 or 19, where he threw it to Charbonnet as a release valve, but before he even had any pressure on him, and Charbonnet was very clearly covered, and he just got tackled immediately. And I thought, what is going on here? I mean, what is this remedial offensive scheme that is being employed here? Ken Walker was out for this game. Zach Charbonnet had previously had hope in him that he could carry this backfield. In the absence of Ken Walker, that's not the case. He seems to have a ceiling that would be a league average running back. He ran 14 times for 47 yards. Nothing to really be impressed with. I mean, him and Geno weren't even in sync in this one. That trip when Geno was dropping back almost resulted in a safety. D. Eskridge, the lone bright spot on offense/special teams. He finally broke out in this one. Had a long return on his first kick return. It seemed like it might have been like 50 or 60 yards. And they were immediately in field goal position and couldn't do anything. Had to kick a field goal. 51-yard field goal by Jason Myers. And D. Eskridge also had another long return. And Geno Smith immediately throws an interception. And one thing that Geno needs to just kind of cut out of his repertoire are these weak throws on out patterns. That needs to stop completely. Either be more decisive with that or just stop throwing them. Because you had a pick here and you could have had more. Also, Tarvarius Ward also, almost had another pick. I mean, Geno every game gets away with one pass that should have been a pick, at least one, maybe two. Deejay Dallas, 2 runs for 10 yards and a terrible, terrible, terrible fumble on. He's going to lose that job as a punt returner. I mean, he fumbled just as the Seahawks were possibly getting some momentum. He goes and fumbles the ball, and when you fumble a punt, you're meant. The whole idea of a punt is to pin you back deep, and so when you are already that deep, and the Niners were essentially in the red zone when you fumble it and give it up like that. So Deejay Dallas, not great. The receivers. I'm going to start with DK Metcalf here because we have to come with to a realization about DK Metcalf here. And if you're watching, you see his line is 3 catches, 32 yards on 9 targets. And he had some egregious drops. In this game. And at some point, I know this hasn't been done before, but the personality of DK Metcalf is not a guy that is going to continue to develop his craft. He doesn't care. He said this already before this year. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be who I am. And this is a characteristic of some people that are given the stature, the bodily stature that guys like DK are. A lot of them just coast on that. They coast on it because they know they can. They know they can achieve more than other people just by coasting. So they don't feel the need to develop it at all. They develop an ego very early on because people feed into that ego, because people are naturally drawn to that, and they have no motivation to develop it. And DK is not doing that. And DK does not have the heart, it seems, to develop. So if that's the case, then Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I would advocate for becoming the Seahawks' number 1 receiver. And if you saw this game, And you saw that one-handed catch that he made. I mean, the broadcast was so smitten with that they started to show the Odell Beckham catch in comparison to it. Jaxon Smith-Njigba was the best receiver in college football last year. He was the number one wide receiver taken in the draft last year. And that is for a reason. And you use a first round pick on him. And this is a guy that is going to give effort, that wants to prove himself, that has the skill. So reward him. Make him the number one receiver. Tyler Lockett, always reliable, has always continued to build on his skills. Started off as like a kick returner, punt returner. He must stay as one of the top two wide receivers. And throw DK Metcalf, if he is going to continue to coast on just his skill and not continue to develop, throw him in the slot. Make him the number 3 receiver. See how he reacts to that. He needs to be demoted in order to activate something within for him to have a fire in his belly to work on himself and see that it is a real possibility that I can be out of the league and have no identity anymore if I don't shape up and develop. That's what needs to happen if you want to get the most out of DK Metcalf. Jake Bobo, again, underutilized. I learned in this broadcast that he is one of the rare wide receivers that runs essentially a 5-second 40, which puts him with, I guess, more so tight ends than receivers. But if you know how skilled this guy is at catching the ball, he would be your best tight end. As for the actual tight ends in this game, they just sprinkled it to him. 2 catches, 25 yards for Noah Fant, 1 for 21 for Will Dissly, 1 for 9, Colby Parkinson. Abysmal day on offense and completely unimaginative. The only time where you felt like this offense was semi functional was when they went up tempo in the end of the first half, beginning of the second half. And if that's what it's going to take, not your scheme, but how fatigued the defense is, then that's what you got to do, at least as a Band-Aid for now. Okay. Going to the Seattle defense. There's no way to sugarcoat this. I've been a proponent of this defense for at least a couple, I would say at least like 2 months now. Almost 2 months. Because I feel like relative to the offense, they have been performing well. But that first half that I saw from the Seahawks defense, there's no excusing that. And it highlighted the weaknesses of the individual players on this team. When they tackle players, it's not pushing them back, it's bringing them forward. That's a little thing that needs to change. The inability to properly wrap up and bring somebody down. They are wrapping, but they are not twisting to bring them down. And we saw that in an embarrassing Juwan Jennings reception. And you had Witherspoon trying to bring him down and had him. And Juwan Jennings was just carrying him. And he just spun and you weren't able to get him down, and he got that first down, and that happened over and over. Christian McCaffrey did it. Deebo Samuel did it. Deebo Samuel, by the way, has an uncanny ability to break tackles. It must be something about how he twists his body immediately when he feels contact, or he pushes down on potential defenders and he stiff arms. But that's, the defense, I feel like, is, while they are somewhat improved on the tactic the weaknesses that they've had before. It's the final step is when you wrap somebody up, make sure you're bringing him down or you're picking him up so that he's off his feet so that you can put him on the ground. Um, the giving up of stuff in the zone, that's not really your fault. That's a Clint Hurt thing, and that's a Pete Carroll thing. I suppose that they is compelling them to continue to play a zone defense. Um, Individual players on this team, Jarran Reed uh, tipped the ball that allowed Jordyn Brooks to get the pick six. Um, of course, the only touchdown scored in this game was by the defense. Bobby Wagner, God bless him, he's doing what he can. He got 2 QB hits. He has 8 tackles every week. It just seems like he's losing another step, and trying to have him keep up with Christian McCaffrey was looked a little sad. Quandre Diggs, a lot of people trash Quandre Diggs, and he does miss some tackles, but it just seems like he's like on every play. He's not. He plays similarly to Earl Thomas. To be honest with you, he's everywhere, and he does make a lot of tackles. It'll only show 6 tackles today, which is a little surprising. But he did get also a pass deflection as well. I'm higher on Diggs than some other people. Jamal Adams had 2 tackles for loss today. That showed up as well. That's his forte. He is a linebacker. Don't let anybody tell you he's a safety. Devon Witherspoon had 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass deflection or defense. But I mentioned the missed tackle. Also, he is the reason why they gave up that touchdown to Aiyuk in the second half. Mostly a half that this defense played really, really well. I mean, the defense is why this game wasn't 50 to wasn't 50 to nothing essentially. But Boye Mafe, again, this is 2 games in a row. He didn't get a sack, but he on that play, that touchdown pass to Brandon Aiyuk, he almost got to him just the same way he almost got to Matt Stafford last week. I think one of their touchdown passes as well, just like a fraction of a second too late. Trey Brown didn't do much. I mean, the rest of them. I mean, there was 1 sack this game from Darrell Taylor, who had 2 QB hits as well and 1 tackle for loss. He flashed at like one point, but Leonard Williams, I guess, is starting to come into form, which is a positive 2 QB hits and a tackle for loss, 4 tackles, which is, I think, high for him, which is good. Great second half by this defense. Listen, if there's a bright spot, it's the fact that they had a great second half. Only allowed 7 points, and that was like threading the needle. That was Brock Purdy barely getting past Boye Mafe, and then him threading the needle to Aiyuk between Witherspoon and I think it's probably Diggs or Julian Love. I have to, of course, acknowledge the fact that if you look at the San Francisco 49ers here, they're replete with talent. And Nick Bosa, 5 QB hits, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. You're not going to see many players better on defense than Nick Bosa. Charvarius Ward, 3 passes defensed. He was on DK Metcalf most of the game, and DK Metcalf beat him in the championship or the playoff game last year for a 50-yard touchdown, I remember. And he was getting a lot of flack. And, if you know the 49ers defense, you know that their weakness is their defensive backs, which makes this lack of success even more egregious. And Shane Waldron should have seen that immediately and been able to game plan against this defensive backfield, and he wasn't able to. Ambry Thomas got 2 passes defensed and the interception for them, and they were just wreaking havoc. Hargrave, 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 2 QB hits. Eric Armstead had 2 QB hits and a sack. And when we go down here to special teams, Jason Myers, he also is a guy that got a lot of flack from people last week because he missed that 50-plus yarder. We're going to have to make a determination here about what the new standard is, because Jason Myers hit a 51-yarder to give the first 3 points of the game because the offense can't score. And then he missed a 54-yarder at the end of the first half when, again, the Seahawks offense couldn't get anything done. And then he made another field goal later. And I saw a stat that said I think he is now 3 of 7 or 4 of 7 or 4 of 8 on 50-plus yard kicks this season, meaning the Seahawks weren't compelled to have him kick 50-plus yarders for like the first 8 games, which what that tells me is this offense is really regressing because the kicks that he was making before were inside of 50, or he wasn't kicking them at all because the offense was scoring. So that's a sign of clear regression from this offense, and Shane Waldron not being able to handle the ebbs and flows of the year, or just the drudge of as the season wears on. Okay, overall picture with this team. They are now 6-5. The Niners are 8-3. The Niners pretty much are 3 games up on them at this point, and there is 6 games to go. The Seahawks, once viewed as a lock for the playoffs, have dropped to the 7th seed behind the Vikings. And the teams behind them, the Packers, by the way, I alluded to this before, the Lions can't catch a break even in a year where the Lions are having a great year. The Packers go in and pretty much blow them out on Thanksgiving. I mean, this game got close late, but the Packers won to make them 5-6. The Rams are 4-6, but play the Cardinals this weekend. The Buccaneers are 4-6, but play the Colts this weekend. And the Falcons are also 4-6, and they play, I believe, the Saints this weekend. So there could very well be 3, if not 4, more likely 3 teams that are 5-6 after this weekend, and you are 6-5, and you are the 7th seed in the playoffs, and you have the Cowboys and the Niners again and the Eagles coming up in your next 3 games. Raise your hand if you think the Seahawks will still be in the playoff picture come 3 weeks from now. This is me not raising my hand because I don't see how that can happen. I don't see how it can happen. All right, this has been a longer than normal podcast. One thing I wanted to mention as well about DK Metcalf that I forgot to mention is that he wears a very dark visor in these games when he plays night games. It just adds to what I was talking about before. This guy cares more about other things than football. Okay. Seahawks 6-5, not looking good. My advice: fire Shane Waldron, bringing somebody that knows how to coach the offense and prepare for opposing defenses and put your stars in the right place. A podcast hopefully will be coming up with possibly the folks, my buddies with the Cowboy Starcast. It's probably not going to be pretty. They're coming off a high, and this is the lowest I've seen this Seahawks team in a while in terms of prospects for the future. But hopefully that happens, so look out for that. Follow this podcast on all platforms. Subscribe, give a good rating, share with your friends and family and everybody. Much appreciated. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving and a great long weekend. And until next time, have a fantastic day, football fans.